Well, why don't you give us the abridged 2-minute version of your top couple of priorities if you're elected?
Well, I would say that number one is to restore and ensure the trust and integrity in our elections. Because as the Chief Elections Officer of the state, you have a very important role in ensuring that people trust the elections. And as I often say, if you don't trust the manner in which your public officials were elected, you won't trust your public officials. And you have an important role as Secretary of State, particularly given the fact that Ohio is one of the a focal point of the nation in presidential elections. The Secretary of State's office is often used as a partisan tool to gain advantage in that process. We need to move away from doing that. We need to make sure that people trust their elections. As I saw a poll recently that 50% of Ohio voters believe that election fraud is a real problem in the state. I don't believe that that election fraud is something that is a serious problem in Ohio, but I do think that there are things that we can do to improve upon that, and I do believe that the Secretary of State should play an important role, and that's where we get to the first plan, or first piece of the plan that I've laid out there. Is on day one I'm going to form a bipartisan commission made up of representatives from rural and urban counties to go around the state, meet with the 88 boards of elections on a bipartisan basis to talk about what they like about how elections are running, what they don't like about the rules that come from the Secretary of State's office, and the emerging issues that they see that we need to prepare for 2012 so that we can ensure that the elections will run smoothly. If we do that early and avoid the 11th hour directives that precipitate lawsuits and a lot of the strife, I believe that we can get buy-in and improve upon the way that our elections are operated in this state and reduce the partisan strife that goes on. Now, I'm not naive in thinking that there won't be challenges and issues that will rise at the end, but if we minimize them, I think that we can improve the situation with the elections. The second piece is the role that the Secretary of State plays in business development, job creation in the state through the Business Services Division. Right now, we have an antiquated system where if you want to start a business, you fill out a piece of paper, you put it in an envelope, you send it off to the Secretary of State's office, somebody there opens it up, they key all the stuff in for your business filing, and then if you have everything right, then they send it back to you approved. If they don't have anything right, then they send it back to you and you have to fix it. This is the 20th century system. We need to move to a 21st century system, which includes online business filings where you put it in much like you would put in your credit card information. If there's a mistake, it pops right back to you. You're able to fix the mistake right there. And then you submit it, and it immediately sends you back a tracking number so that you can know where it is, and then 24 hours later you have your business filing. And that saves you time, money, energy, attorney's fees, things like that, stuff that you might otherwise have to incur as a business. And if we do those kinds of things, that means that everybody's first interaction, as I call it, the Secretary of State being the front door to small businesses and entrepreneurs, everybody's first interaction with the state of Ohio will be positive. All right? And then I want to use that interaction to also help them tap into other resources in state government that might help them, whether that be the Small Business Administration services, whether that be Third Frontier, Clean Ohio, all the other programs we have to help them begin to have a positive interaction with state government. And I hope to use this example as something that we can persuade other agencies in state government, other elected officials, other people that interact with the public to modernize their systems and make government. Government doesn't need to do everything in life for us, but the things that it does do, it should do right and do efficiently. And through those two things, I think I'm going to upgrade and take to the next level the things that the Secretary of State does, and ensure that people feel like their government is working for them and not against them.
Can you talk in some specifics about election reform? What would you like to see done with things like Golden Week or some of the things that cause issues with voter registration,
Sure.
ACORN? What specifically do you want to see changed? along those lines?
Well, we have legislation moving through the Ohio Senate and the Ohio House right now that address a lot of issues. But let me give you some general thoughts on our system. First of all, early voting has been a good thing in a couple of ways. One, more people voting early has reduced the lines at the polls on election day, and I believe overall increased voter participation in the process. I think that is a good thing. The downside is I think 35 days is too long. I would like to see that decreased to maybe 21 days and provide a few more a few different places.
Why is 35 days too long?
Well, here's why. I'll get into that.
Okay.
First of all, you could probably experience this as newspapers. People, it's really hard to get people focused on election 35 days out, and it serves, frankly, in more of the down ticket, whether it's down ticket statewide or in local races, as an incumbent protection mechanism, because the incumbent is typically the one that's well known, and if people are voting early before the campaign has really had a chance to get underway, and you've had a chance to write your articles, and people have had a chance to send out their mail and radio ads and TV and things like that, it really helps the incumbent, because the challenger usually doesn't have the money or the name recognition, and 35 days out, it's really hard for them to compete. And so I think reducing that time frame down is a good idea. Still giving people plenty of time to vote before election day, but maybe not exposing us to the problems that we have with Golden Week, where you could register and vote on the same day, which is where some of the more high-profile voter fraud and voter registration fraud problems have occurred.
What about voter registration and the whole Acorn issue? I mean, what do you want to see changed there?
Well, first of all, the Secretary of State has a role of when he or she hears about wrongdoing, that they need to investigate it, and if they find evidence of voter fraud, turn it over to the local prosecutors. I think that's the responsibility of the Secretary of State, and that's what should happen. And I don't know that we've been as aggressive with that as we should be. I probably would be a little more aggressive with it. However, I will be careful not to also create a chilling effect on voter registration drives or anything that might make people feel deterred from participating in the process. So I understand where that fine line is, and I will walk it.
We just talked to the governor about the humongous budget hole that's probable in the next budget cycle. Is there any prospect of that affecting you negatively, and does that fit into your plans? Because if that is as big as they say it's going to be, everybody's going to be suffering something.
Well, and everybody has to chip in and be part of the solution. I'm already thinking about that. I've talked about the business services aspect of it. One of the other things that it allows you to do in Indiana, where they've made this change, it used to take 20 minutes to put in place to process a business filing, and now they do it in 3. So by doing that, we can reduce the cost inside the office too of doing this, and hopefully, reduce the number of employees that it takes to do this over time and save money that way. I will step up and lead in whatever we need to do to make the cuts necessary to help balance the budget, because we all have to pitch in. We're all in this together, and we all have to lead thoughtfully. I want to make sure that I do my best to use technology and the resources that we have to continue to make sure that services are delivered so that people get what they need out of the office, but at the same time it's done as efficiently as possible so that we can save the dollars that we need to get the job done. But it could mean that there are less things that the Secretary of State's office can do. But the other aspect of this is that the place where elections really matter, really cost the most, are at the local level. It's in the 88 counties that really pay for this and administer it. And that's where I want to be helpful in making sure that we have uniform standards, that we don't do these 11th hour directives that they have to then work overtime or print in a bunch of new ballots or do a bunch of things, buy new machines, things like that cost money. So I'm not only going to be part of the solution on budgetary issues in the Secretary of State's office for Ohio, but I think I have an important role also in doing that in helping the 88 counties solve their problems too.
You mentioned the 11th hour directives. Does that mean you would let election boards do their jobs and you wouldn't micromanage?
Well, I'm going to work with them early to get a lot of buy-in about what we're going to do. All right, I think that we can get beyond having to make those 11th hour decisions if we get the buy-in early. I know that there will be issues that come up where local boards of elections disagree, and then those issues will come to me, and I will at that point in time, take on the responsibility of thoughtfully considering their thank you, thoughtfully considering their arguments, applying, but ultimately applying it to the law, because I don't get to make the law, I administer the law. If I want to make the law, I should stay in my job as a state senator, but it's my job to administer the law. And I think that by working with them and building those relationships earlier, and not just talking to them, but actually listening to them and responding to what their needs are with those principles that I talked in mind about saving money and all those kinds of things, that we can eliminate a lot of that.
You mentioned moving into the 21st century. We basically are still conducting elections the way that we did in the 19th century. What about Ohio moving into something like Oregon-style polling, where you just do it by mail?
Well, if all Ohioans chose to do it that way, they could right now. We have a mail system where anybody that chooses to vote by mail can. But I also know that there are a lot of people that like Election Day and like the idea of, and campaigns, let's face it, campaigns even with early voting are still built around a crescendo that will give people the maximum amount of information so they can make the decision by the date that everybody has to vote by. And I don't want to dramatically change anything about that process right now, because I think people are comfortable with it. And understand, I really believe that change has to come at the pace that people can take it. And if you try to change things like elections in a way that makes them lose confidence rather than gain confidence in the elections, I think that undermines what I'm really supposed to be doing. So I think that we can continue to make gradual changes to make it easier. I mean, look what's happened. If you look at some cost savings, and this is the challenge of making one policy for 88 counties that are very unique. Right now, with early voting and mail-in voting, a lot of counties like it because they can save money that way, because if people mail them in, that means they can reduce the number of precincts and the number of voting places and the number of machines they have to buy, and that largely helps more urban counties because it saves money for them. But if I'm a county with, if I'm Williams County, where I grew up, they have one voting place basically per township, maybe a couple in places like Bryan, or but they can't consolidate anymore because of the distance that people have to drive to vote, and so mail-in voting actually costs them money. So we have to think about this from a global perspective and looking at all of Ohio about how we change these things to both make it convenient and also cost-effective for a lot of the smaller counties.
What do you see the Secretary of State's role in terms of